As always, a pinned comment will contain the music for this video as well as in the description. Please support these talented artists. The Lovecraftian has generally been about fear of the unknown. That attempts at gaining unknown elements of the universe will ultimately lead to nihilism and madness. But here in You Will Not Remain, when glimpsing the faceless eldritch creature consuming your city, it seems almost boring to your character. At first terrified, but the intense horror of the monster is thrown aside as you become trapped by your own dwindling mental health, becoming a story that shifts the horror of the eldritch gods onto the player's depression. Days drone on, the world doesn't seem real, devoid of almost all color aside from the purple that settles on things to indicate actions the player can take. Although everything is obscured and nearly incomprehensible, I thought this rug here was a dining table for the longest time. Even the player themselves is unrecognizable, having two eyes on each side of their head, showing the degree of derealization going down to their own body. You can't even dream outside of this room anymore. All your memories are trapped inside with you, never again to remember a time from your quarantine of the diseased people outside. The memory of your loved one becoming dim, violent screams of agony as they starve to death outside your apartment because the authorities over the radio said not to let anyone in. A memory they try to lock away within themselves, as reliving it is the most painful experience they can imagine. Your old self collapsing away without the structure of your memories, and thus, you live in a literal limbo, where the changes of your limited world rely on drink coffee, don't drink coffee, go on balcony, don't go on balcony, water plant, don't water plant, eat, don't eat. Unsure if your days are just repeating, as all of them just kind of bleed together into one single day. You at least perceive them to be repeating, and that's what matters. Finding a lost dog in an empty apartment that you name Lampshake does add a bit of joy, temporarily, before he just becomes part of the monotony of your bland, unfocused world. It reminds me a bit of the book I Am Legend, which is about a global pandemic of vampirism taking hold of the world following the journey of Neville as he deals with complete loneliness, the last man in Los Angeles. Neville's only reprieve from solitude being his infected neighbors taunting him into the night. Or the few chapters in which he meets a dog that Neville tries but ultimately fails to cure of vampirism. The last lines of chapter 13 read, "You'll be better soon," he whispered. "Real soon." The dog looked up at him with its dulled, sick eyes, and then its tongue faltered out and licked roughly and moistly across the palm of Neville's hand. Something broke in Neville's throat. He sat there silently while tears ran slowly down his cheeks. In a week, the dog was dead. Let me say first, Lampshake does not meet his end within the game. I think it's implied Lampshake becomes part of your daily routine after the game ends. But something is almost more tragic here, as the death of Neville's dog propels him forward with a reborn vigor to make a change in the world, to not completely give in to hopelessness. The character in the game grows numb to everything that enters their life. A whole day is spent almost exclusively saying, "Is anything real?" The only real hope is near the end. Your anxiety feeling more like a cover for the anticipation of the human interactions you've forgotten. To know and be known. To feel and be felt. To see and be seen. Outside the doors are those who were changed. The radio was wrong. there is no rescue coming. From this, I found out what the game's title meant. You do remain. You never leave the apartment. But the character themselves is slowly falling away, disappearing into the background static of a lonely, unchanging world. No color, no people, no music, no joy, no face. The game makes the eldritch monster loneliness, severe mental illness. No matter how much we understand about these things, they still have major impacts on your life. You could know everything about depression, learning plenty of ways to avoid, treat, and lessen its effects, but ultimately, when a bout of depression washes over you, you feel its effects. You can know your life is fine, and know people love you, but that won't change the fact that sometimes you cannot feel those things, numb, unable to recognize the beauty of a sunset.
Okay, so what are the symptoms about? If I had to define major depression in one sentence, I would say it's a biochemical disorder with a genetic component and early experience influences where somebody can't appreciate sunsets. And that's what this disease is about.
I'm not saying people with mental illness are monsters, but that at its most extremes, mental illness makes being alive a literal hell. And I'm sure many of us today can relate to isolation and loneliness. If anyone is going through a mental health crisis, please call the emergency number for your area, but I've also posted a few links to crisis hotlines in the description. Thanks for watching. Until next time, have a good one, you fungoids.